problem in failing to identify the bigger issue, in my opinion, which is the manufactured war by the New World Order of everybody against everybody, has taken away from the very ability of Americans to see what is at stake here. And believe me, it's far more than oil. Listen to this. I believe, and she's talking about Iraq, it is money-driven, and we have willfully made these people our enemies by our support of Israel. Well, absolutely, it's money-driven. Now, also, ladies and gentlemen, understand the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers have pretty much controlled the world's banking system. The Rothschilds prior to the Rockefellers, and the wars that have taken place between those guys. And again, most of us can't even relate to the types of money we're talking about. But I have a friend of mine who's a very, 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 how do I say this, well-informed man of God who spent much time in the Middle East. And you'd be surprised what really goes on over there versus what you hear. Because, again, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds have controlled everything from the Dead Sea Scrolls, the archaeological finds, the giants. You know, my chief gripe is that whenever they turn up the giant bones, the cleaners, meaning the guys that come in and make sure those things never see the light of day, immediately go in and they hide or destroy or lock up in vaults the stuff that's pertinent. But again, I want to repeat this. Not one American boy of any color is worth any of these people. America has betrayed her friends and supported her enemies, i.e. the Republic of China and the Shah of Iran, Germany, and many more. Well, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, I've made that statement too, Shirley. I have said that there is yet for me to see a case in history where the United States State Department, currently represented by Colin Powell, where we have ever made or done the right thing. How about even Nicaragua? You can go on and on. How about Cuba? You know, the bottom line is Republic of China, Taiwan, and the Shah of Iran. We could have stopped the entire Islamic fundamentalist movement when the Shah of Iran was our friend, and we didn't, ladies and gentlemen. We threw them to the wolves, we, the United States. So for those of you that don't believe in conspiracies, I can tell you this, that obviously American foreign policy has brought us to the point where we are now, and I believe that very soon is the destruction of our country. I don't believe we can win. I believe that God, because we have mocked Him for so long, that it's over. Now, what do I mean by it's over? Here's the deal. Jeremiah 7, thanks, Mark. You literally sent this as I made that statement. Mark said this, and I got to tell you something. See, I know that the Bible says in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every word be established. As I was just saying that our country mocked God, here's what email I opened up. It says, Steve, this country has mocked God for so long. How long do you think it will be before the Lord tells those of us who are prayer warriors the same thing He told Jeremiah regarding Israel? The Lord may not want us to intercede for America anymore. And here's Jeremiah 7. Therefore I pray not for this people, neither lift up cry nor prayer for them, neither make intercession to me, for I will not hear thee. Now, Mark, I believe that God still is asking us to intercede for specific people. I also believe that we can intercede for God's hand to be stayed until, known to Him, the last of the flock are brought in, the remnant are brought in. Even the New Testament, Jesus commands the angels to go out and compel into the highways and byways and compel people to come in. And again, I want to make this clear. I have been on talk radio longer than most people who are currently on talk radio talking about the judgment of the living God upon America. I can take you back, if I could remember dates, and I can't, to statements where I made being awakened in the wee hours of the morning 5 or 6 years ago and literally seeing a vision of the hand of God with a giant hourglass being turned upside down, and the Lord then stating that there's no more sand, Steve, left in the top container. You see, again, most people in America can only understand judgment in instantaneous, Sodom and Gomorrah. But when you understand the wasting and the pleadings of God, and every day, when I get up or when I go to sleep at night, or the nights and days to me are the same, so I apologize for that. I don't know, if you're calling 1 o'clock in the morning, is that night or in the morning? In the wee hours of the morning maybe is more accurate. I keep saying, Lord, thank you for what I have now, but I know it's not going to last. I think of, everything. We've got running water. We've got beds, We've got a thermostat. We turn it up to hot if we're cold. We turn it down if we're warm. And all of this, which we've been so blessed with, the abundance of the grocery stores, yet little by little, the Americans are being indexed out of their livelihood. Well, I'm going to take a break, everyone. I've gone a little into the beyond the half-hour mark. You're listening to Q-Files. I'm Steve Quayle. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Q-Files. One of the points I have to address tonight that's really important is the issue of the Rothschilds getting out of the gold bullion business, at least from the standpoint of being on the board that the London gold pool that usually sets the price of gold. Now, they used to do this twice a day. You had the morning fix and the afternoon fix, but with the internet and with so many markets for gold now trading 24 hours, it's a little, how do I say this, it's a little late. Now, a lot of people have taken this to say that, oh, gee, what's going to happen? I want to read to you what Jim Sinclair has written, because, again, Jim Sinclair has made his fortune in gold. One of the smartest men in the world. He's one of the only guys that told people to get out of gold at 8 1/4 when gold hit 8 1/2. Again, for those of you, Clinton, Jan, and others, please don't send me any of your nonsense. I'll block your email, because it's just not worth listening to an argument where you can't defend your argument. Listen to this. Recently, the Financial Times published a totally cockeyed, bearish article, Going Gold, which called the absolute low of this gold reaction. This article dealt with the withdrawal of N.M. Rothschild from the twice-daily London gold setting. It's amazing what undercurrents this clearly goldophobic article simply makes up. In my opinion, Rothschild said they withdrew because their commodity activities, which include the gold setting, made no money. The only truth they forgot to mention is that in all probability, it costs the Rothschilds money. The rub in all this is that the Rothschild was the chairman of the gold fixing that has taken place in their offices since 1919. In the old days, we used to hang fire on the gold setting, which was broadcast around the world twice daily and was the most important event in the gold market. Now it is totally meaningless because the cash bullion market for gold is no longer at the fix, the driver of the gold price. The driver price action is in paper gold all over the world 22 hours a day. There was simply nothing happening at the fixes, and no one cared about them except the few old aristocrats that gathered daily in the cigar smoke-filled room to do nothing at all. So there were really only two reasons why Rothschilds quit the gold fixing business. Number one, there was no business. Number two, there is a recognition that the derivative market for gold is huge, but the cash market for gold is tiny. This means that over-the-counter derivatives for gold sits on the tiny cash market, and the derivative market is the greatest danger to be involved in. This will, in time, derivatives result in making the cash gold market the most volatile market on the planet when the over-the-counter gold derivatives on gold fail. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, when the paper gold fails, the real gold goes through the roof. Now listen to this. If any derivative fails, it will be the weakest, and this is the over-the-counter gold derivative market. So be warned, my dear friends at Barrick. Not hedging anymore is good, but getting those hand grenades off your waist called over-the-counter derivative book is even more necessary. I will offer another reason, not attributable to anyone but myself. I believe the foundational pillar over-the-counter derivatives that created the OTC, over-the-counter derivative market for gold, are fraudulent transactions. I believe the market was created in the same way that Enron sucked all the money they raised in public markets out of their back door. This fraud is straw partnerships dealing in the gold over-the-counter derivatives, but all trades are made by one computer and distributed daily to the conspirator straw partnerships. In this fraud, there is no real risk at all when the straw partnerships are placed on one Excel spreadsheet. Yet any one straw partnership will appear to have real risk when in truth there is none. This is how the old TC, over-the-counter gold derivative, took birth. This is how the electricity derivative market, when Enron went bust, simply could not be found anywhere. Did you notice how all the companies, both private and public, that got into the game simply closed their doors or merged as a way of sneaking away? The bottom line is this, that the Financial Times of London cannot figure out that Rothschild's withdrawal from not the gold fix, but from making a market in cash gold, is bullish for the price of gold by further reducing the liquidity of the cash gold market that is foundational to an out-of-control gold derivative market. However, never tell them, because we want the Financial Times to be forever the greatest predictor of the direction of the price of gold. As I said when I listed the bare items in gold, one of which was all things British, the Financial Times shines bright in its aristocratic attitude that paper controls all. Here's the question. If no central bank owned any gold, what would the price of gold be? The writer would say $1, and I would imagine $10,000 per ounce or higher. Who said that dodo birds don't exist? So here's what he's saying. He's saying that, he said, who says that dodo birds aren't extinct? In other words, the Financial Times is blatantly stupid. Ladies and gentlemen, here's what the whole issue is. We are seeing prices in commodities absolutely skyrocket. I have had people send me emails, which I've read on the air, of the price of lumber. Electricians are just paying astronomical amounts for their conduit and their electrical supplies. How about copper? Even lead, 5 times what it was a year ago to date. Plywood, OSB board, everything is going up. Bozeman, Montana, at a little place called Casey's Corner where I buy my gas. Last week when I talked to you, it was $1.99. Today it's $2.04. That's a nickel in 1 week. So much for 2.5 cents through the summer, huh? So it's not only us, it's not only just gasoline, it's absolutely everything is going up because people have got to make a profit. So when you hear that X, Y, or Z company is laying off 5, 6, or 7,000 people, let me tell you what that really means. It means they're not making a profit, and the only way to book a profit is to cut expenses. So they use creative bookkeeping at the expense of lives that are forever ruined and being fired. Now, before anybody gets too hysterical over this statement, look at the history of NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. I remember when that was proposed. We hashed that out on the radio. We beat it up. We beat it down. And, it's going to be good for us. At least that's what the pundits and the powers that be said. And then the General Agreement on Trades and Tariffs, known as GATT, G-A-T-T. And what do you have now? You have 6.2 million Americans unemployed. But you see, that's not even the issue. The issue is that scarcity is what comes. And again, when I read historically of the judgments of Almighty God, it is obvious that drought and famine are the two that are absolutely predominant in history. Now, there was a guy named Raymond Wheeler who wrote a book on climate and history, and, a classic work. And I'll make it real simple. You can go read the book. For those of you that are technically oriented, I would recommend you do. But he says this: as the climate change more than any single, factor is responsible for the greatest migration of people. Now we have weather control. One of my listeners in Buffalo, New York, sent me an email stating that Buffalo, New York, I think for a couple minutes over the weekend, had an excess of 100-mile-an-hour winds in what is, known as microbursts. So I find it fascinating, again, that Buffalo, God bless the people in Buffalo, New York, because they're at the home of Al-Qaeda Central, and now they're having to deal with microbursts. But weather is going to change and become more hostile, more than any of us can even imagine. And it's not just the ice that's melting in the polar, the Arctic or the Antarctic. It's not those issues alone, or that the fact that seawater is rising. It's not the fact that the viruses that are out there, both man-made and that used to be endemic, and the genetic mutation of the tweaking that's being done by very demonic scientists in black laboratories around the world. It's not just that stuff. It also is this point. The point is that, again, people don't recognize that even in Joseph's day, when Pharaoh made him second only to Pharaoh in the land of Egypt, when God had given Joseph the ability to interpret Pharaoh's dream, Joseph knew that it was time to prepare in a time of plenty for a time of famine. 99% of Americans, maybe I'm being too generous in that, 99.99% of Americans don't have any clue of what's getting ready to happen. I used to think it was 95%. I changed it. It's no longer that high. Forgive me, it's no longer that low. It's higher now. And if you think I'm kidding, just try and talk to someone. All you usually get is, oh, I want to hear that. That's negative stuff. I want to go sing on Sunday, bringing in the sheaves. I said, you better start praying or there's going to be no sheaves to bring in. A sheaf of wheat is obviously a bundle of wheat, meaning bringing in the harvest of the Lord. But literally, it's amazing to me that most people can't see that what affects the physical usually takes place in the spiritual first. That's where science doesn't get it. Real simple. The Apostle Paul talks about the things that are seen being created by the things that aren't seen. In other words, spirit takes precedent over matter. When you had the age of reason, and you had the God is Dead movement of the early 1900s, where reason took, how should I say this, replaced faith, and tried to provide all of their theories and all of their understanding, in essence, setting themselves up at God. Guess what? They failed miserably. And now at least some of the scientists are recognizing that even if you deal with the spirituality of nanotechnology building up things from a molecular level or the atomic level up, in other words, piling atoms on top of each other until you get whatever you want, whether it's a hamburger or a computer monitor or a chicken a la king. The point that I'm trying to make is that, again, spirit controls matter, not the other way around. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now coming into the most spiritually pronounced age that the world has ever seen. Because when you go to the book of Revelation or read the book of Daniel, what you're seeing is that which has been captive, whether it's the angels in the river Euphrates being loose. What you see, and for those of you that believe that it's just all symbolism, well, I can tell you this, the imagery and the illustrations are symbolic. The outcome is very, very real. You see, things aren't getting better and better. They're not, how should I say this, we're not headed to the golden age. And unfortunately, because we have, I would say this, a complete confusion in leadership of this country. By the way, you don't think that's true. Go look at the front page of Drudge today, the Drudge Report, and you'll see that already the rumors are that the high command of the Bush administration is fighting amongst itself. I believe when Clark broke rank and said what he said, whether half of it's true or part of it's true or none of it's true, the point is that he's making allegations that have to be answered. And again, it's my contention that the last address that the president made to the country was so pathetically and non-functional or non-relevant that he ought to try again for the second time. The Bible says the multitude of counselors there is wisdom, but also, ladies and gentlemen, it talks of a time when being surrounded by evil counsel can only produce evil. If you believe, like I believe, that there is an organization, that there is a supernaturally not only funded but empowered organization of men and women who have sold themselves to literally the devil. Remember, Jesus himself said, the love of money is the root of all evil. Then you can understand that obviously by whatever his father, the former president, is beholding to them, and the current son is beholding to whoever put him in office, and we all know the story of that. The point is that now we've got an issue here where the whole world is looking on to this country. And I believe God himself has drawn the attention to the plight of this country. And so when I say that, now it's like there's no one to hold off the wolves. And you can kid yourself, even those of you that hate God, I can tell you story after story of battlefield, fantastic stories. Probably one of the greatest stories I ever heard was told by Derek Prince, who was with General Allenby at the Battle of El Alamein in North Africa. And he tells the story of when it was obvious that there was no earthly way that they could win the British at El Alamein, that General Montgomery kneeled in the sand and said a simple prayer. He said something to the effect of, "Let us ask the Lord God of heaven, who is mighty in battle, to give us a victory." Now, ladies and gentlemen, Montgomery, whether you like the British or not, was no slouch of a general. But he also had the ability and the foresight to know when the deck was stacked against him, that there was no one else to implore except heaven. And how about David going up against Goliath, and not only going up against Goliath, but ready to take on Goliath's 4 giant brothers, okay? You know, it's one thing to have one battle in mind. It's another thing to say, I'll take all 5 of them on. And David's mighty men of valor said, "Not for you, David, O king, to go up against them. We'll go up against them." You want to see probably the most pronounced and exciting period of history is when even you see King Jehoshaphat surrounded and outnumbered, but he sets the singers out before him, and they start to worship God, and God turns the tide of history. You see, this is what I'm trying to get all of you guys to understand, you ladies and gentlemen, to understand. There are enough physical, real instances, whether people acknowledge it or not, where the entire tide of history has been turned because people have called upon the living God. And that's what I want to instill in the last hours that I have on radio. And believe me, you guys, you know it too. We're all getting to the point where time is running out. You can't go on a board, a computer board of people talking about current events and current stresses, Christian or not, and sense this overwhelming, how do I say it, everybody knows it's getting ready to happen, everybody. And it's fascinating because the New Agers have their take on it, the Satanists have their take on it, the Wiccans, the witches, the warlocks, they have their take on it, the Christians are a split camp, and they have their take on it. Some people believe they're out of here in a pre-tribulation rapture. I'm not one of them. Some people believe they're going to just be miraculously delivered from all this. And I said, don't you think, based on what you're seeing in Jerusalem, maybe you ought to reassess your position that you're still here? Again, ladies and gentlemen, it's always easy to believe you're going to get out of here, and it's always another thing to know that you're in it. It's really important. Let's read this. Listen to this. I'll read this on the air. I don't know who sent this to me. Let me go so I give the Neil. He says, you may not want to read this out loud, but I believe you should go to the Prophecy Club and listen to the audio clips where Stan Johnson interviews David Taylor. He says the same exact thing, having dreams that missiles will attack Florida and California very soon. This minister was told his message would be followed by signs and wonders. He'll be encouraged and vindicated with your message by going to read this. I'm sure you're familiar with the message of other prophets, but this guy is so very encouraging while giving this message of judgment. Fascinating, everyone, that, again, see, everybody's learning or coming to the conclusion that it's up. Let's see. Oh, good point, Thomas. He says, Steve, I heard you say that Kitty Hawk was off the coast of Australia today. Yeah, I'm reporting what the AP said, Tom. I don't know if this means anything, but many people believe that America's scalar weapon development and testing has taken place in the remote Australian Alice Springs Australian base. Supposedly there is a large underground base there, actually multiple underground bases in Australia. I have heard strange reports and happenings going on deep in the Australian outback. Some believe these strange events were calibration testing for scalar weapons. I heard your show last week about the Kitty Hawk and the possible use of scalar weapons. I just thought you might like to have this little tidbit of information. Thank you very much. It's amazing, just amazing. Let's see this. Let's see. United Nations Security Council has convened an emergency public meeting at the request of Arab nations who are furious over Israel's assassination of a top leader of the Palestinian militant group Hamas. The Arab bloc plans to present a draft council resolution condemning the killing of Rantisi on Saturday. So, again, ladies and gentlemen, the anger and the frustration is increasing. There's got to be a point where the steam is let off. Let's see. Richard Coombs is sending me. Richard, I can't read that all in the air, but I'll talk to you about doing an interview. Send me your phone number again, and I'll call you tomorrow, a good time that I can interview, because I'd like to have you share your information firsthand. Let's see this. Interesting, okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of times, I get emails, and if it's off the train of thought, I can't deal with them. But here's the deal. I want you to know this. If you'll send me emails you have questions for, I typically read my email before I do anything else. So if you'll send it to Steve777 at stevequayle.com, Steve777 at stevequayle.com, I'll try and answer questions that you send me the night before on the following show. Now listen, my Steve at safetrack.com is not going to work anymore after probably tomorrow. It's just getting too many viruses and stuff, and it's just like out of control. 900 messages in 2 days, with about 2/3 of it being stupid stuff, and somehow whoever wants to jam up my email has been successful on that account. So the point is that, again, I want you to send me the emails, and those of you who are sending to my old email address, listen to me. I won't get your emails, so send them to steve777@stevequayle.com. I also have to change my phone number on that gold ad. Gold, if you want to call me for the precious metals, it's 406-586-4840. 406-586-4840. And so again, if you've got any questions, I would gladly answer them. Send them ahead of time, and we'll deal with them. Because, you know, here's the deal. The nice thing about a forum like this is it's real time, and the information capability is so up to the minute in many cases that it's fabulously effective. Knowing that it's fabulously effective, you can understand the desire at some point that it's got to go down. I'm the first to admit, when they take down the Internet, I will probably suffer such severe information withdrawal that, you know, I'll probably have to put my head in a bucket of cold water just to simmer down a little bit. But the point that I'm stating to all of you tonight is, enjoy it while you have it, but don't just be information junkies. Don't use this as your daily fix of scare tactics or anything. Use it as a motivating basis to provoke you to prepare and prepare and prepare. And as I've said all along, this isn't about us, it's about others. It's one thing to want to give a cup of water to someone in the name of the Lord. It's another thing to be able to have a cup of water to give in the name of the Lord, or to be able to make a difference in your neighbor's lives. Again, let me share this, and this is very important. People in this coming time are going to be more important than stuff. Let me say that again. Most people who prepared for Y2K and the eventual breakdown of society, I've talked to some hermits, and I said, what happens if you get sick? Well, I guess I'm in trouble. And I said, what happens when you get too tired to stand guard, and on the first minute you fall asleep, 4 minutes following that, that's when you should have been awake. You see, no man, especially in this day and age, is an island unto himself. Again, God has prepared, and I don't know, only known to the Lord, cities of refuge, mountain retreats, places for people to go, bringing people together. And when you go into a survival situation or a group, always go with the attitude of, what can I do to be a blessing? I can tell you this, you go with an attitude of being a blessing, you'll be a blessing. But this is not the time to basically bring the lazy boy attitude and think just because you plop your butt down someplace in any part of the country that you get a free ride. The point is, there's always something to do. It's like Nehemiah building the wall. And for those of you that have cities of refuge, make very sure that you only share the information with those that God tells you to share it with, and when He tells you to share it with. Because like Nehemiah, you're building the wall, and you've gone in and see what's going to happen. But hide it in your heart. Hide it in your heart. And for those of you that are being given visions and dreams, ask the Lord when you're to share it, and if you're to share it with me, God bless you. If you're to share it with someone else, God bless you. But do it in time, because the Bible says that a word fitly spoke in season, how sweet it is. In other words, there's a season for this stuff, and there's a timing. And I got to tell you something. Again, timing is more important than any of us realize. And I'm not talking about the timing of when it all comes down. I'm talking about the timing of doing what we can do while we still have a few minutes ticking away on the clock. Well, good night, everyone. Give me a call tomorrow, 406-586-4840, and we'll talk about the precious metals. Good night. Bye-bye.